Hello there, this is David Rao from Join Up Dots, and this is the Podcaster's Mastery module on calls to action. Should your intro and your outro be the same? Should the music at the beginning of your podcast be exactly the same as the one at the end? And I honestly would say no. This is prime podcasting real estate. This is the territory that you can make so much momentum in your own business by getting people to do stuff for you, by putting your calls to action. You're asking for people to do things, and it might be that you're asking them to leave iTunes reviews. It might be the case that you want them to go over to your website and click on your opt-in box, download a PDF, whatever you want to do so that you can gain something from them. This is where you do it. So how do you do it? Well, first of all, the intro should have to have your music first of all, and there should be the personality of your show. It should be reflective of what they're going to get. And we've talked about that in what makes a great intro to your show. Now, after that, you will see it time and time again that people will actually put additional stuff on. They will ask, and it might be for sponsorship, whatever, or it might be call to actions by leaving iTunes reviews and all those kinds of stuff. And we're going to prove that because we're going to go over to iTunes now and we're going to have a look at what people are doing, and we're just going to choose shows by random and see what they're actually wanting to do at the beginning and at the end of their podcasts. Okay, so here we are in iTunes, and we're going to start looking at some of the big boys, the power players in the podcasting world, to see what they actually put at the beginning of their show. And it's really useful to always look at what the big boys are doing because they're doing things the right way. So let's go over to Pat Flynn's, and we'll just choose one randomly. I'm going to go this one only because it's 35 minutes, and I'm going to click on here and see what he says.
This is the Smart Passive Income Podcast with Pat Flynn, session number 145. 45, Omaha.
Welcome to the Smart Passive Income Podcast, where it's all about working hard now so you can sit back and reap the benefits later. And now your host, whose favorite number is in box 0 and 3, Pat Flynn.
So you can see on that episode that he gives every episode a character. Every intro is slightly different from the one before. And so you might want to do that. You might want to look at creating a kind of fun element at the beginning of your show that you can set yourself apart from other people. So it doesn't all have to be asking for people. It's setting the scene. It's showing people what you do well. And if it's something fun, if it's something intellectual, if it's something spiritual, if it's something emotional, whatever you want to do, you might want to start your podcast, every single one, in a slightly different way. Now, I'm going to have a look at his end bit, so I'm just going to skip over.
And Ryan wanted to actually sponsor this episode and next week's episode so we can get more listeners to his podcast. And I thought that, I've never done this before. This might be a cool idea. And so I want to let you know about his podcast, which I actually listen to, because his podcast, Freedom Fastlane, is all about building an insanely profitable business and investing the profits into truly passive income sources. Obviously, he was on the show last week, and you all love that episode, so I recommend subscribing to his podcast. All you have to do is open up iTunes or Stitcher, search for Freedom Fastlane, and hit subscribe, or visit freedomfastlane.com/Pat. So check him out. Thanks so much, and I'll see you guys next week. Peace.
So there you can see Pat Flynn, call to action at the end. The beginning of his show was fun. The end bit was asking for you to do something. Go over to the other person's podcast and subscribe. So think about it carefully. What are you going to use your intro for? What are you going to use your outro for? Are you going to do fun and informative? Are you going to ask for things? What I don't like personally is when people at the very beginning ask for iTunes reviews instantly before even show. That sounds a bit desperate somehow. So let's summarize that. You can play around with both your intros and your outros, but you've got to make the most of them. You can either add call to actions at the front and the end of your shows. You can have fun at the front to create a branding, to create a mood for the show. But always make sure that somehow you're making the most of these bookmarks for your podcast, because they are vitally important for you as you grow your business. And certainly in my show, I will always ask for something at the end, more often than not, to go over to JoinUp and download the 8 Steps to Success guide. That is my email opt-in. That means that I can then collect email addresses, that ultimately I can then connect with my listenership, which is a powerful way of operating. So think about it seriously. You can grow into it. You don't actually have to go hell for leather when you first start the show, but think about what you're aiming for, what kind of call to action you would want your listeners to provide for you, and add it to the show.